How's everybody doing this morning? It is your buddy Chapadong. I am back and better than ever, even though my voice doesn't sound like it with the allergies in the air. But spring has sprung and I feel great. It's time to talk MLB DFS. Let's dive in. I will point out first that right there in the timeline under my name, Chapadong, on Twitter, you can find a nice little snippet of free information. We've unlocked everything in the PGA today. Everything from the content to the coaching picks sheet to the research station, it's all free. What we're hoping, of course, is that you come in, you like what you see, and you say, you mean I get all these sports for just one single investment every month? I unlock tennis, golf, PGA, NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, MMA, throw three letters together, we probably cover it. Follow the link down there, dfsarmy.com. Use coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, trigger that 20% off discount. Or if you want to, tell them that I sent you from this particular video and use the coupon code MASTERS, M-A-S-T-E-R-S, for that same 20% off discounts, whichever one you want to use. The bottom line is, it's all free for you to try. Since we're loaded up for the first major of the year, we'll probably come back tomorrow, talk a little bit more numbers, maybe. Masters is one of the golf contests of the year I typically have the most success with, because as a regular golf dude, as a kid, I've studied, I mean, I know the course, I know who typically does well there, the shot strengths, whatever else. That's all just ingrained in me from following regular golf. I lean on our coaches a ton, don't get me wrong, but I really rely hard on course history. A guy that does well at the Masters typically does well at the Masters. That's why Freddie Couples still makes cuts at age 51, 52, whatever. I suspect that a few of these guys are always in the running, so they give you some cheap punt potential to make it to the weekend and round out the rest of your lineup if you can just pick some of the guys in the top five. So got really lucky last year, had a $75 swing with a Matt Kuchar hole-in-one on 16, so that was always pretty cool. But bottom line is, it's a fun competition to play. It's a good way to introduce yourself into golf, so come on in for free and try it out. However, we're here for baseball, and I'm doing something a little bit different today. I'm going to touch on my player pool and stuff. For my VIPs yesterday, I gave them a pretty crappy back half of the lineup building process video. It's 40 minutes long of me probably droning on and on and on, and a lot of dead space as I was tweaking the optimizer, showing people how much patience it takes to set these things up right. And I'll work on that, and I'll get that down a little bit better as we go, try and keep those things into 15-minute snippets. But just to let you guys know, that's what's coming for the VIPs. Let's dive into the research station today, and the first thing that I want to talk about is the pitching K-score stuff, because let's walk through this. Those are in order. Okay, I'm sure there are other playable pitchers on the slate, and if you want to play on DraftKings and you have to take a second pitcher, probably not touching too much DeGrom. You're probably looking for a couple of cheaper guys. Let's talk about who maybe the best one on the slate is for bang for your buck, and then go gamble with that second pitcher on DraftKings. I started off with Jacob DeGrom. Gun to my head, that's probably where I go. I know he's 12-2 on FanDuel, but he's got big Vegas odds for it, you know, favoring him in the 220. He's got a decent K-score to 540. It's not as high as the 560 or the 550 you see below it. He's got 100% DFSA grade in his matchups against Minnesota, who I'm not very scared of. And we all know what Jacob DeGrom is right now, possibly the best pitcher in baseball. Okay? No, of course we're going to start there. But now that we've isolated, and that's going to be a tough one to beat because it checks all of the boxes except maybe salary. So what we need to maybe look at, and even as a tiebreaker, he's at home, but what we need to look at is there somebody cheaper who gives us similar odds, similar K-score, similar DFSA grade type, facing maybe a weaker offense that's cheaper? And if he's cheaper, how much cheaper? And how much am I willing to sacrifice what DeGrom is offering to take the money and run? This is all you're doing with pitchers. All across the slate. You can go down, I stop at 5 or 6 guys typically, because in those 5 guys, somebody's going to probably have a good game. And if I'm MMEing, then I can basically just put 20% on them all and rock and roll. Or weight them a little bit differently, or play with their projections or whatever, and get different percentages of them to pull forward. But I'll have a little DeGrom, I'll have a little Cole, I'll have a little Stripling, whatever. But if I had to pick just one lineup, 2 or 3 lineups, is building very, very small lineups, hand building them all, I'd start with DeGrom. I'd probably take Cole over him. even though it's the Yankees. That's carrying risk. But the $2,000, $1,500, dollar savings is significant to me when it comes to what I have to do with bats. 12-2, my experience from Max Scherzer and Clayton Kershaw and those guys tells me you've really got to reach for some value. Now, we have a big enough slate tonight that you can do it with a 10-game slate. There will be value, but you're going to really have to dig for it. And honestly, it's not really a fun way to play. I don't get to set up my stacks and my big bats and what, so I'd probably come down to Cole, sacrifice the little bit of Vegas odds because 175 is still good. 563 is a great K score. 75 DFS grade is fine. It's just the Yankees that I'm a little bit worried about. Cole's good enough. He can probably shut most of them down, but slip up just a little bit, a walk, some sort of a little chinky little hit or something like that. You got two guys on, maybe a slip up and hit a dude, load the bases, bam, one swing, you mess up, grand slam. I mean, it can unravel quickly in a powerful offense like that. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. There's more risk in there. Stripling is another one, carries a little bit of risk because St. Louis can score. But look at that. We're coming down another $1,900. We are $3,200 under Jacob deGrom. And we've got a minus 120 odds, which is about 50-50. It's not great. But the 549 K score suggests the strikeouts are there. I can give up a couple of runs and maybe luck out with the win. And that's pardon the dog. The dog's telling me Stripling is the play. We're going to do that little Jerry's World, a.k.a. the DraftKings Edge podcast, if you guys listen to that one with Al and Peter and Adam. That it's kind of funny when the dog starts barking. But anyway, $9,000, $3,000 savings is juicy. For a better K score, I probably take that. Then I look at Lucchesi for an extra $400 discount, and I probably would go there next because the minus 110 is a 50-50. The 495 K score is still okay. I'm not at all scared of San Francisco. I would rather face San Francisco than New York or St. Louis. So Lucchesi for the extra 400, I probably would be stuck myself on Stripling and Lucchesi tonight. One of them will probably have a solid start, and I probably save $300 to $3,500 off of DeGrom's price. So I will take a little bit of DeGrom and some tournament type stuff. I'd probably take DeGrom in cash, but the way I play cash with a little bit of risk, with a little bit of stacking, with a little bit of not worried so much about ownership and complete safety, I want some upside in there too. I probably would want the upsides in a stack in my bats. I'd probably still take Stripling. So if I had three lineups, I'd probably take two Stripling or a Stripling Lucchesi and a DeGrom. Two Striplings and a DeGrom, maybe a Stripling, Cole, and a DeGrom, but the bottom line is Stripling's going to be the first pitcher I go to tonight. Lucchesi, probably close to second, then probably, Cole or DeGrom, and Strasburg's going to be the man left out. It's a little more inconsistent anyway. He's priced down on DraftKings, which I always look at the pricing difference. He's priced down $800. This is priced down because of the salary cap itself. This is priced down minimally. This is priced up a little bit, and this is priced up nicely. So, Lucchesi's getting the DraftKings bump. Strasburg's getting the DraftKings, tank, if you want to call it that, whatever. He's an underdog. He does carry the strikeout. He's got the upside. He's definitely going to win some GPPs. If you can shut Philly down, he's got the upside to definitely win the slate. So he's a great GPP type of pick. And he'll probably be a little bit lower on these than, a couple of these other guys up here. So he's probably a pretty good pivot. I think these two will be typically lower owned. Just because people don't look at the slate the way I do. Hopefully you see my balance, what I go for. Some nights it's great, some nights it doesn't work. And some nights you get nailed with an injury. With Ryu last night, I was on him everywhere. I was also at the game, and when I saw him huddling behind the mound, I was like, oh no, don't get hurt in the second inning. You're screwing me over. And he did, but there's not much you can do about it. It is what it is. Let's jump into the research station. Let's reverse those pitchers since we've now got our order. And we bring the K score, the low DFSA grade to the top, and we're also watching this bad category. So I'll probably take these top three guys, right? Those would probably be some of my favorite stacks. Dodgers, Milwaukee, San Diego Padres. There you go. Probably could work those interchangeably with expensive Dodgers and Milwaukee bats mixed in with some cheaper San Diego bats. That probably just sets up really, really well tonight anyway. Pretty close on the list is the Oakland-Baltimore possible shootout again. Notice how Coors Field's down the list a little bit. Very, very interesting. When I look at the bad category, though, these top three don't change. I probably would pick up, Peralta as a stack against candidate, as well as Mike Minor, both of whom have some upside, so they can be decent pitchers. And maybe these two in the middle, Fried and Jake Junis. I like me stacking against some Jacob Junis. So let's see what that includes. We skipped over Oakland for whatever reason, Baltimore for whatever reason, which is interesting. And Fried, we go to Colorado in a good spot tonight, but do you trust the offense? The offense isn't stroking. I know they scored some runs last night, but we want to see them come up a little bit, see some guys hit the ball a little harder. Down here to Mike Minor. Where's Minor? Arizona? Oh, Peralta, LA. Sorry, that's the first one we start with out of the bad category. And then we come down here to Arizona. So we'd mark those guys down, and then we'd fill in the middle of Colorado, Seattle. So if I had my stacks listed, LA, Milwaukee, San Diego Padres, LA Angels, so both LA teams, Arizona, Colorado, Seattle. Kind of where I'm looking. Okay? Now that's weird because that's off the radar. If you go by implied run total today, as of right now, it's ranked Colorado up top, standard, Coors Field. Oakland next, getting after that Baltimore pitcher. Atlanta, Coors again. Houston, which is very intriguing down here. Kansas City, Seattle, and Baltimore. So a different list. I like it when things would appear on both lists. It gives me a little bit of confidence in the play. So if I look at those two lists, only Colorado and Seattle are on both. Seattle's a hot offense. Seattle was in the GPP winning stacks last night. Love me some Seattle again. Jake Junis isn't anything to be too worried about. Seattle might blow up again. So I do like that one. Colorado is going to take a little bit of leap of faith. And then it would just be mixing and matching. There would be all of these different offenses. I mean, Atlanta, Colorado, if you want to get into Coors Field. If you don't, you might do the Baltimore-Oakland thing. You might focus on the Dodgers. They've got a high-powered offense. Milwaukee, they're attacking quote-unquote bad pitchers tonight. I'd probably definitely look their way. But I'm not coming off Seattle and Kansas City because Kansas City can score some runs, and they're going to be lower owned. Seattle, hopefully, is lower owned again. People aren't necessarily point chasing. Baltimore snuck up on some people last night. I might look at them again, facing weaker Oakland pitching. So those are just some of the things that I'm going to look for. So when I go through the Trends tab, and sort by this L7 WOBA here, no, don't do this to me, you turd bomber. Let's go ahead and just refresh it. Doesn't take long at this point because we're just going to go through the Trends tab, go position by position, look for the teams that we like. I mean, if we wanted to go, we'll pick a couple of stacks first. Let's do that first. But you're going to watch me here close off some of the early games, hold the control button down, click, 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 done. Now we're only looking at the main slate. Now we'll sort by L7 WOBA, which is my favorite metric of all time. Bring all of the short guys to the top, all the hot hitters. Vogelbach, Verdugo, Trout. Trout's really heated up, hitting 730 WOBA over the last 7 days. Wieters, Diaz, Rendon, Renfroe. These are the guys that we need to be paying attention to anyway, right? So let's say we wanted to start with the worst pitcher out there, which is really interesting, is Dakota Hudson, according to the DFSA grades. And that means we should be looking for Verdugo, Russell Martin, Cody Bellinger, Max Muncy, maybe David Freese if he gets a spot start, Kiki Hernandez, if he can hold on. Austin Barnes perhaps a little bit. I worry a little bit about Barnes with the 530 dropping to a 360. Tells me he's tanking pretty hard. But I'd be watching some of these other guys to include in my stacks. Pretty simple. Run to Milwaukee. This is one way to do it if you're picking stacks, okay? Thames, Grandal. Arcia, again, great value play. If you're going to run, and Thames on FanDuel, but great value play in Arcia if you're going to run a Cole or a DeGrom type, you're going to want to probably dig in and find him. He's hitting a 479 WOBA, up from a 319 2 weeks ago, so he's running hot. He draws Matt Harvey, who's not a stellar pitcher. Milwaukee's in a good spot tonight. Lorenzo Cain's a little pricey. Hernan Perez, if he gets the starts, another value play on FanDuel. But you got guys that are hitting over 400 WOBAs, and that's what you're looking for. Skip over San Diego for a minute. Skip over LA for a minute. Arizona. Let's see if any of the Arizona bats are still hot, because if so, I'd love to go there. They'll be lower owned. It's a handful of them, right? Vargas and John Ryan Murphy are on shorter samples, but Peralta, Jones, Ketel Marte, fine. Don't mind that at all. Colorado was the overlap stack. So let's see if anybody's heated up there. Down in this range, getting at bats. I need people getting at bats, and not quite yet, but they're maybe coming up. Is this Arenado? Arenado 307 to 373, starting to heat up a little bit. David Dahl's been on. I think he's injured. I'm not really sure. I haven't used him for a few days. I see the orange making him questionable. I don't follow the league if I don't play the players. I check it as I fill up my lineups later tonight. You should do the same. You always need to make sure they're in the starting lineups. Trevor Story's starting to heat up a little bit, 340 into a 400. So maybe we can look at a couple of these guys, but I wouldn't necessarily be stacking. I just don't like stacking against teams until I've been proven that they're running better. Seattle, however, oh, doctor. Now they're starting to come back a little bit. Encarnacion, Beckham, Bruce, if Beckham plays, Bruce, Domingo Santana. These guys are starting to come back a little bit, which is good to see. Vogelbach should be the key of everything that you do. You'd run into an optimizer and you'd probably jack his points 3 or 4 points, so make sure it pulls him in. His price is really coming up, though. $3,500 on FanDuel, $4,200 on DraftKings. Probably not a cheap one-off that you'd be able to use, but he's definitely somebody that you need to be looking at as hot as he's running. Let's look into KC and see if anything's changing there. Probably finish it off with a little bit of Oakland and Baltimore. Alex Gordon stays hot. Whit Merrifield's heating up, 379 into a 420. He might be kind of on the uptick, 340 into a 380, and Ryan O'Hearn. And Mondesi, I'd like to see this number come up before I started using him in earnest. Let's look for some Oakland. Oh, I'm at 16 minutes already. So there's the 4 guys you'd use there. Fegley, Pinder, Piscotty, Laureano, if Laureano plays. What was the last one? Baltimore. So you're getting a good smattering of who I would be stacking and which guys off of which teams I'd be stacking. And then I'm going to throw them in the Yahtzee Cup and mix them up and see what comes out and probably play some quarters again tonight. It's just a fun way to play for cheap. You don't get too hurt. You got upside to win 50 or $100. That's how you like to play, then go for it. If you're really wanting to grind it out, you may want to be a little bit more scientific. If you really want to grind it out and build a cash lineup, put 80% of your lineups there, build 20% of your other money around quarters or around GPP stacks or around whatever, that's the smart way to play. That's the way I would advise you to play if you were getting coaching inside DFSArmy.com. But I like to play a different way because I'm in it for pure entertainment value. These days, I'm not trying to grind up some kind of a big giant bankroll so I can get in these big giant contests. That's just not my thing. I've got too much other stuff I'm doing in writing and producing content for you guys that it takes me away from that aspect of the game. The guys that can do both, good Lord, they're better men than I am. Baltimore, Jackson, VR, Alberto, Ricard, Mancini, a little bit of Nunez. Nunez is a little bit low on the list, but you're going to find your cheaper stuff here in San Diego for sure. Okay, so if I go ahead and I kick this off, go back to the L7 Wobas, let's look at the catchers. Top 3 to 5 at each position, let's say, with a decent sample size. That's not a sample. Russell Martin if he starts, which he might not. Fegley if he starts, which he might not. But Grandal's heating up, 330 to a 570. Yes, please. Gary Sanchez, of course. John Ryan Murphy, if he starts. Tyler Flowers, if he starts. These are all guys that are hitting really, really well on smaller samples. But these are the guys that you want to be looking at when it comes to your catchers, okay? First baseman. Be interesting to see if we need real cheap guys. Thames is cheap. Dominic Smith, probably low sample, of course. Tyler Austin, low sample. The rest of the guys are generally pretty expensive, but these are the guys that you're looking at. Vogelbach, Thames, Muncy from a 393 to a 564. Edwin Encarnacion, Peter Alonso in New York. Rhys Hoskins, Freddie Freeman if you can afford them. Even Brandon Belt right now. 340 into a 430. Brandon Belt is always a little bit sneaky. Kind of a one-off play. Don't know that I'd be stacking a lot of Giants. Would have panned out a little bit last night, but I don't know that I'd be stacking the Giants, night in and night out. I love watching Ryan Zimmerman. He gets hot as hell sometimes. So I'd be looking there. I'd be piecing these together by position and value as opposed to stacking by teams if I was building more of a cash type lineup. Vargas short sample. But if he starts, you need to be paying attention to it. He's going against Mike Minor, who we'd love to attack. Kiki, Albies, VR, Wong still, Merrifield perhaps. Notice that your bigger names, your Altuves, Cano. These guys are not on the list yet. It's still these other guys that are rocking and rolling. So we want to stick with what's working. Rendon jumps to the top with Bregman. David Freese, if he gets a start, it's good and cheap. J.D. Davis, if he gets a start. Machado. I mean, no surprise these guys are up here. Pinder, if you need a little bit of value, because Pinder should get the start, and he's a 333 into a 481. That's an ascending player. That's somebody who can produce just like a Machado for, $2,000 less. That's the kind of value you look for in cash games. And you take your shot with it. McNeil's price has come up a little bit. Solarte on a smaller sample, 330 into a 450. He's gotten hot lately. I haven't even seen his name anywhere, so that's pretty amazing. He's one that I follow. You'll pick up your favorite value plays. And Arcia in Milwaukee is definitely one of mine. Jose Iglesias later in the season will be somebody I probably start talking about. Hits at the bottom of the order as a shortstop. He's cheap. He gets hot sometimes. Aledmus Diaz gets hot, and he's hot right now. Jorge Polanco, one-off out of Minnesota. Gleyber Torres, Tim Beckham, Orlando Arcia, as long as he stays hot. Good and cheap. Not as cheap as Aledmus Diaz, and Diaz probably has more power than Arcia. So he might actually be the better one-off right now. Swanson's come up. He's in Coors, but he's come up. 4,000 is a lot to ask. Alberto in Baltimore, maybe a one-off there. 450 Woba. So again, just kind of picking your poison. But you're going to find some value at shortstop, obviously. If I come down here to the outfield spots, Verdugo, Trout, Renfroe, Goodwin maybe. Bellinger, Gallo. Golly, Gallo up here to 521. That's strong. That's pretty strong because he's got double dong power. Now he's going to strike out a lot. I wouldn't use too many Gallo types in your lineup. Conforto, Harper, Bader, cheap. Peralta, Kepler, Kane, Gordon, Jones, Marte, Hernan Perez if he starts, Ricard, cheap. Tony Kemp's the bottom of the order kind of guy. Nick Markakis is cheap for Coors. 3,900 for Coors is pretty cheap. 4,000 over on DraftKings for Coors is probably pretty cheap. I don't know why his price hasn't come up a little bit more. You saw what he did last week. I'd look him up against Marquez. See what his history against Marquez is. And Piscotty. But these are the guys I'd largely be looking at. So you've seen my player pool from two different directions. Stacks and then just kind of one-off piecemealing it together for, cash game hybrid type lineups. If you want more advice like this, more coaching like this, you come inside dfsarmy.com. Let's talk some golf. Let's talk some baseball. Use that coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P. Click that link down there in the comment section. Always ring the notification bell, hit like, hit subscribe, and you'll get this content as it drops. My VIPs get more content than you guys do out here, and we're up 23 minutes. I apologize, went a little bit long, but there you have it, and there you are. That's pretty much my entire player pool for today. I'm Chop It On, MLB DFS. What am I? Representing DFSarmy.com, senior content editor and content producer, and I'm out of here. Later, boys and girl.